Hi, I'm Marius Oosthuizen, researcher at the Centre for Leadership and Dialogue at the Gordon Institute of Business Science. Speaking with me today is Lumkile Mondi, Chief Economist at the IDC. Lumkile, thank you for joining us. At the moment, we're seeing major problems in the labour market. We're seeing, you've got experience with parastatals, Transnet. We're seeing challenges at Medupi in that project. What do you see the role of dialogue being in the public space in South Africa in bringing those stakeholders together?
I think all of us are realizing now that, 20 years later, we probably haven't dealt much about inequality, about poverty, about unemployment, because only one side thinks got all the solution. And I believe that through the dialogue that we are engaged in now, also with the National Development Plan, which really has provided up as a platform to start debating, start dialoguing about what's possible, that all of us will buy into that and through dialogue be able to achieve a better outcome than the one that we've driven since 94 of exclusion, of seeing ourselves as victims, now victors, and trying to marginalize others because we thought we had all the answers, which clearly 20 years later we've seen that they haven't worked at all.
Speaking of the National Development Plan, there are some that say that the expectations are not being met and they don't see the plan being able to do that. On the other hand, being an economist, we need to talk about the robust, practical economic realities of our country and the environment within which we operate. How do we bring those expectations on the one hand and those practicalities together? What is the role of dialogue and leadership in that space?
Well, firstly, I think many people that are very critical of the NDP haven't talked enough. I think the process was very, very transparent. After the plan, the first plan was published, and all of us as citizens were invited to comment. I think those who were very critical didn't use that process because that process was to enable every South African, all the corners of our country, to react and comment. Not only was it done, in fact, in English as published, I think the commissioners tried very hard also to make it very popular through the languages, the 11 languages that South Africa has. And I think some of them chose not to participate because they don't understand dialogue. They want their views to be the ones that win the day and continue to date to talk from corners because the commission is still open to ideas. So the plan is not the commissioner's plan. Marius, the plan is yours.
Lumkile, you mentioned a debate at the moment about the role of the central bank and financing in that sense in South Africa. That's your expertise. What do you see happening there and how do we take that forward as a country?
Very importantly, we've got some lessons that we've seen post the crisis, particularly through Bernanke from America, the governor there of the central bank, but also coming from the European Union, specifically the European Central Bank, around the critical role of the central bank to kickstart growth and assist in austerity programs, particularly if the country lives beyond its means. I mean, we all understand now post-crisis how we all over-leveraged as households, as companies, and how that over-leveraging led to the crisis. So in South Africa, the critical area is around the growth story, that the growth in South Africa is really at full potential, around 3%. And given the strikes that you've seen in the mining sector and currently in the auto sector, and what potential for growth does that carry South Africa through? And also, what can the central bank do in terms of assisting the growth story, given what we've seen in Europe as well as in America? And there's a popular view that says perhaps interest rates in South Africa are not low enough. Remember that in the US, we now have got real negative interest rates. In Europe, we're not there yet. But really, South Africans that are concerned about unemployment, poverty, and inequality are saying maybe one of the deterrents is the cost of funds. And therefore, the Reserve Bank mandate of inflation targeting, whilst ensuring that the economy grows, is limited. Maybe the Reserve Bank can do more. That's one school of thought.
If we look at the way in which Europe has responded to the crisis through austerity versus America through more government stimulus, given South Africa's movement away from European Union as a major trading partner towards East Asia, China, how do we bring these links together between the state-led growth that we want and the role of central financing to enable that?
Well, I think the danger for me in South Africa is that the state-led growth that's being pushed at the moment is being discussed has got lots of weaknesses, which is embedded in the weakness of the state and the capacity of the state to deliver. So in as much as I think politically it sounds very popular and palatable particularly from the ANC, but I think we're not Taiwan, we're not China, we're not South Korea, nor are we Singapore. So if we had a forged vision or a common shared vision, which the NDP speaks to, which I believe that everyone is going to align to, perhaps bringing in highly skilled individuals to run certain critical areas of the state may strengthen the state capability. So the state-led growth vis-a-vis the commanding heights of the economy, that is ensuring that the state is influencing the commanding heights of the economy and influences the central bank, is a model that we saw in the 1970s in Britain, which pushed Britain into a very, very poor economy and a crisis until Britain shifted to what people have called right-wing Thatcherite policies through free markets and taking the state out of the commanding heights into the areas where the state can do better, which is transport as well as health and education. So we may find ourselves having to go there at some point in time, but I think in South Africa, as long as we still find the state-led model as well as controlling the Reserve Bank as attractive, I think we're going to be there. That's why I love the NDP, because the NDP seeks to marry that popularism with some free market ideology that Thatcher and Reagan had introduced in the economy, which I think if we do implement after elections next year, I think we may come far, far better than we're at the moment to a state-led growth model that the ANC is pushing.
Lumkile Mondi, thank you for talking with me. Wonderful insights.
Thanks for inviting me.